Is the Fender American Professional II Telecaster in Miami Blue the instrument that will finally make you feel comfortable on stage, or is it a pricey splash of color that could sit idle in a closet? Who should grab this classic-looking axe? Who might be better off with a more budget-friendly option? And does the price make sense for someone who just wants a solid, everyday player? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first started looking at Telecasters, the biggest hesitation I felt was the fear of paying a premium for something that sounds great on paper but doesn't translate to real-world gigs or home jam sessions. The American Professional II line promises upgraded electronics, a refined neck profile, and a finish that turns heads. That promise is tempting, but it also raises a question: am I buying a genuinely upgraded instrument, or am I just paying for the Fender badge and a glossy coat of paint? In the next few minutes I'll walk through the everyday experience of plugging this guitar into a typical rehearsal amp, what you'll notice in a small club, and why the specific details of the Miami Blue finish and maple fingerboard matter more than you might think. First off, the body is made from alder, a wood that's been a staple of Telecasters for decades. In a practical sense, alder gives you a balanced tonal foundation, tight lows, clear mids, and a little snap on the high end. If you've ever struggled with a bass-heavy single coil that muddies a mix, you'll appreciate that the Fender's routing leaves the tone relatively open, allowing the two single-coil pickups to breathe. In a live setting, that means you can sit comfortably in a band's mix without constantly fighting the engineer for space. The Miami Blue finish is a transparent, deep blue coat that shows off the wood grain underneath. It's not just eye candy. The thin finish adds a marginally lighter weight compared to thicker polyurethane layers, which some players notice when they're standing for long sets. If you're a session musician who moves between stages, that extra ounce or two can actually make a difference in comfort. The neck is where the Professional II label really tries to show its value. Fender opted for a modern deep C shape combined with a maple fingerboard. The shape feels slightly slimmer than the vintage-style U-necks you see on older Telecasters, which translates to a faster feel for players who like to throw in some quick chord changes or bending on the higher strings. In my own test, playing a country-style shuffle for 10 minutes felt natural, and the transition into a bluesy solo didn't require any awkward hand adjustments. That said, if you're a player who prefers a chunkier, more traditional Tele neck, the deep C could feel a touch too narrow, especially if you have larger hands. The maple fingerboard also adds a subtle brightness to the overall tone, reinforcing the single coil's natural chime. For jazz-oriented players who lean on warm, rounded tones, that extra brightness may be a minor annoyance, but for rock, country, and pop styles it's a real plus. Now, let's talk about the pickups themselves. The two single-coil units are part of Fender's V-Mod series, which claim a more even output across the coil and a tighter low end. In practice, when I swapped the Tele into a clean amp setting, the neck pickup delivered a clean, glassy sound that cut through a rhythm section without sounding thin. The bridge pickup, as expected, gave that classic Tele bite snappy, a bit gritty when you crank the gain. One practical strength here is that you get two distinct voices without needing a separate pedal or switching rig. A typical use case: you can lay down a warm rhythm track with the neck pickup, then switch to the bridge for a solo that screams without any additional gear. The downside? Because the pickups stay single coil, you still get the 60-cycle hum that can be noticeable when playing at very high gain or in a low-noise environment. If you're planning to record in a treated studio, that hum can be mitigated with a noise gate, but it's something to be aware of before you buy. A point that often gets overlooked is the hardware. The bridge is a classic 6-saddle Tele design, which lets you intonate each string individually. I found the intonation straightforward. A quick tweak of the saddle positions gets the guitar in tune across the fretboard. However, the bridge isn't a tremolo system, so if you're looking for dive bomb effects you'll need an external pedal or a different model. The tuning machines are standard Fender sealed gear, reliable for the first few years but not as buttery as higher-end locking tuners. In day-to-day use, they hold tune well enough for regular gigging, but if you're a touring professional who needs rock-solid stability on the road, you might consider upgrading the tuners later. So, who should actually consider spending the premium on this Tele? If you are a working musician who wants a reliable, stage-ready instrument that looks as good as it sounds, the American Professional II Telecaster checks a lot of boxes. It's especially appealing.